Talk your truth. Talk it. Need to hold that rope. Yes. Yeah.
So there you go, disgusting Nazi fascists, and we need to cut all their throats. I mean, Roy did a great thumbnail involving that phrase, and I thought, I don't think we can even put that on YouTube. But strangely, you can say it on the street.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's just fine, apparently, in a crowd of people. So if you want to talk about incitement, and we'll get on to, of course, the difference with a jury trial and why they decided that it was not guilty. But even if you're talking about the American First Amendment, you know, they talk about fighting words. There are things like proximity. He's there with a crowd of people pretty much saying, do violent stuff. You know, I'm not the jury, I'm not the judge. You know, to the layman, that looks a little bit incity, I will say. But it was not guilty, judged by the jury. Okay, fine. I mean, what did you think about that, Paul, before we move on?
Well, look, if it looks a bit incity. I mean, you know, the judicial system is something we'll get onto, I'm sure. But let's just look at it on face value. If you are going to incite something, there's no better way to do it than in front of a group of people with a microphone. And if you're in front of said group of people, they're all G'd up and waiting for you to speak. And during that speech, you ask them, you point out who you believe your enemy is, and send them on their merry way to go and slit their throats. Then I don't know what else you're asking them to do. It's not really a metaphor, is it? You don't. It's not the sort of thing you heard your nan say. You know, have a good day at school. Don't forget to slit the throats when you're there. No one ever. It wasn't a turn of phrase at all, was it? So it's not like you can disguise it. You know, everyone's. I mean, just look at the placards: smash fascism and racism. No,
yeah, very neatly
you're
printed.
Not doing that. You're just this is utterly ridiculous. I mean, this guy, right? If you change his skin color, you'd say that was a far right thug. You know, the parts of our media would say that was a far right thug. He's got the haircut, he's got the goatee beard, can't speak very well,
got the polo shirt.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the sort of people who adore me, but it's just
our audience. It's our audience.
It's our audience. Yeah,
so, Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. These are but it's only the only thing that differentiates him is his skin color, and we've made identity and skin color so incredibly important, which it's not. That it gives in some aspects it gives him a free pass. Now there is no way that anybody can condone what he said. The only difference between what he said and what someone like Lucy Connolly did is that he said it in front of a group of people that were cheering him on. She made a statement and deleted it very quickly. Okay, that was the only two differences. The outcomes were obviously very different. We'll cover that, and I've got a pretty good theory to why the outcomes were different. But this is out and out incitement. There's no two ways about it. I mean,
legally, you have to say it's been deemed it's not.
Of course. So what it is acceptable incitement, isn't it?
Well,
acceptable incitement.
But you have got the argument, of course, that a jury, and we'll get onto this, the argument that a jury, they don't really want to convict people. And you've got the argument that a jury probably wouldn't have convicted Lucy Connolly. But let's get into it in stages, because I wanted to share this. And here's where the kind of the so-called right, or the kind of soft right, like the Tories, which, well, really the woke left, aren't they? But a few of them are okay. Here's where they went wrong. So Chris Philp here, if we can see that. He says it's astonishing that Labour councillor Ricky Jones, who was caught on video calling for throats to be slit, is let off scot-free, whereas Lucy Connolly got 31 months prison for posting something no worse. The development of two-tier justice is becoming increasingly alarming. It cannot have been a question of uncertain evidence, as Jones was on video clearly calling for violence. The government must come forward with plans to ensure justice is handed out equally, regardless of the background or views of the perpetrator. But as far as I can see, this Labour government seems to be quite happy with two-tier justice. Now, the problem with this, and there's many similar posts, it doesn't really make any sense. What do you want? Do you want the government to step in and have plans to have equal justice? It doesn't make any sense, because we have jury trials, and jury trials probably are a good thing. We can get onto the flaws in them in a minute, but they're basically a good thing. And this is a bit of a strange argument from Phil, because it just opens you up to obvious criticism that, no, this was a jury trial, Lucy Connolly's wasn't. The key thing to get into is why Lucy Connolly's wasn't. But he's completely missed that, and he's gone with this fairly kind of non sequitur argument. And that leaves people like even as ridiculous as Anna Soubry to be able to come in. And I always think her account looks like a parody, so I can never tell. And she replies to him and says, you were never the sharpest tool in the Conservative toolbox, but this goes beyond ignorance. A jury acquitted him. You know the difference between someone pleading guilty and a jury delivering a not guilty verdict. You're fishing for votes at the bottom of the political pond, etc., etc. So this is the problem. It was not a smart argument to use, and it just opened you up to that because, yes, he was granted a jury trial, but she wasn't. So the key part that was two-tier, right, was why wasn't she granted that? And I can move on, but I'll let you say something, because I don't want to hog the.
I don't want. Basically, all I want to say about this is that I'm not a fan of the nanny state. I'm not a fan of government overreach, and I wouldn't want the government anywhere near the judiciary. It's all over the judiciary like a flannel round your knob in the shower. It's outrageous, and
you suddenly got really loud there. Can we? You try and stay like brutally still, like you've just been in an accident.
I can't stand brutally still, especially if I'm going to say things like.
I don't know why you got so loud there. Maybe it's probably the knob got you excited.
Yeah, the knob got me excited. I'm Dixon
Can
Cox.
happen.
It can. Occasionally, the knob can get excited. Yeah, I want smaller government than we currently have, and that means having the government nowhere near the judiciary. So the argument is nonsensical in the sense that it shouldn't be the case. There are massive distinctions between what happened to Ricky Jones and what happened to Lucy Connolly. And we'll get on to that. But just to give a flavour of that, she negated any of the judiciary system by pleading guilty. Why she pleaded guilty is much more interesting, and we'll get on to that in a bit. The reason that Ricky Jones is walking the streets today, free to chant whatever he likes, is because he did the right thing, which was to plead not guilty, and therefore was given a lot of time, and kind of took the government out of the process. Lucy Connolly essentially involved the government and was part of this whole kangaroo court system where, right now we can't do anything. We can't do anything within the judiciary system within 12 months. But for about a week in the summer of 2024, you could get arrested, charged, convicted, and sentenced in the same week.
It was like a Craig David song. You could get charged on Monday. You get arrested on Monday, charged on Tuesday, slammed in the slammer by Wednesday. Keir Starmer's going on about you in a speech how amazing it is by Thursday. Yeah, that's where it was, wasn't it? Incredible efficiency. Let's see what Jacob Rees-Mogg said, because he also made a mistake, in my humble opinion. He said, this is self-evidently not an example of two-tier justice, as this councillor was cleared by a jury. Lucy Connolly offered a guilty plea, so did not have a jury trial, although she probably could have done had she pleaded not guilty. So, yes, okay, Jacob, but the question is, why did she not do that? Let's have a look. The problem is here, Mogg, in his obsession with the rule of law. Of course, rule of law was a great thing, but the Tories are still living in this world where we have, Queensberry rules, rule of law. Let's observe the rule of law. It's like, yes, but we don't have that anymore. We have a government that's playing friend-enemy politics. That's basically, if you're on the side of the regime, lo and behold, things go well for you. If you're not, they don't. And we don't have this. Daniel Hannan made a similar point. He was like, I believe in rule of law. I don't like mobs. And I replied to him, we both had 1,000 likes, almost ratioed him. I replied to him, I've said this somewhere, but I replied saying, look, we don't have rule of law. The options are, basically the government is persecuting people. We don't really, what he called a mob was basically people protesting against an unfair system. So rule of law was not even in there. But anyway, I don't want to mangle my own tweet, but see, you got people like Nazir Afzal here who end up agreeing with Jacob Rees-Mogg. He says Ricky Jones was charged, pleaded not guilty, and was prosecuted before a jury of 12 randomly selected British strangers and found not guilty. Others pleaded guilty and were sentenced accordingly. They too could have elected jury trial. There's nothing two-tier about it. So it's very strange that you have Mogg making the same argument as the likes of Afzal. And the key really is in this. Here's a Spectator piece from Laurie Wastel, who's been a guest on my podcast, and I'll stop rambling in a minute, Paul. But he says here, I don't know if you can read it, in the most crucial part of the expose, meaning Alison Pearson's piece, Connolly says she was influenced to plead guilty as a result of being held on remand behind bars, struggling to speak to a solicitor with the trial date potentially months away. Lucy became panicked and demoralized. A guilty plea looked like the fastest way to put this nightmare behind her. She pleaded guilty in the knowledge she would get a discount on her sentence, expecting to be out by Christmas. So she was pressured in a way that it seems like Ricky Jones wasn't, and she was held. She wasn't given bail. So why the difference? And was it that at the time there was political pressure to do this kind of thing? Well, let's just quickly remind ourselves of Starmer's speech at the time.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves.
Now that is key. So whether directly or those whipping up this online, and by that people like Lucy Connolly could come into that. So isn't it fairly reasonable to say there was an atmosphere here created by the government of we're going to get these people, as you say, Paul, very efficiently, even if they were so-called whipping it up online, and under that guidance and under that leadership of Keir Starmer, Lucy Connolly was pressured and told, look, they're going hard on this, just plead guilty, and that'll be the best you can do. It does look an awful lot like that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When you can argue till the cows come home, and there is a fair amount of nuance to this two-tier argument. You can argue till the cows come home whether this is two-tier or not. It's two. If you look at it, if you're Anna Soubry and you look at it as reductively as one pleaded guilty and one didn't, one went in front of a jury and one didn't, it's easy to dismiss the argument. You haven't argued, you haven't had a successful debate, but you just dismissed it and said, no, you're wrong. Because we all ostensibly believe that our judicial system is fair, and therefore, if Ricky Jones has been tried in front of 12 of his peers and found to be not guilty, then the case is closed. And to some degree, that's correct. The two-tier element comes in right at the beginning, right at the beginning, when Lucy Connolly is being advised. She is being advised to plead guilty, not knowing, and we don't know, I don't know if her barrister or solicitor was knowing either. So this is my opinion. Not knowing at that point and doing so is essentially the death knell for her. You imagine if you're someone who's never really been in trouble before, you've never been remanded in custody, you're thinking, this looks like my future. I don't want any of this. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. The best case scenario for me, I'm being told, is that if I plead guilty, I might spend 3 months in here. Just hold that for a sec. 3 months in prison for a tweet was your best case scenario at that point in our head. In no place in Western democratized society should anybody ever feel the threat of being incarcerated for longer than nanoseconds for a tweet.
No, there shouldn't be. It shouldn't even be nanoseconds. That's the other point, as you say. She should never have been in the first place. That's
so. Yeah. Before I continue with my point, at no point should Lucy Connolly have A, been arrested, B, been on remand, C, faced any charges, or D, be trying to figure out what's the best way to get out of here, and is that 3 months? Is that 4 months? I need to get out. So this is the two-tier part of the system.